All right, guys, let's talk about this new engine combination. So if you're not familiar with the car, this previously has still has the fastest stock Gen 1 Coyote engine record. It was a stock long block car previously. We went 826 at 164 with the stock long block. So we were going to do some half mile stuff, and I just didn't trust the stock long block to live to that. And I kind of got sick of expecting it to blow up every time we made a pass. So we threw something together. So I had to pull the heads off this build. I have a billet Coyote. We had to pull the heads off of that because it's the only set I had sitting around in short order. Did our valve job, our port work. Yes, I leave the port work that rough. I am a bird finish fan. It is a Manly valve, PAC 1219X spring. It's a modular head shop, titanium retainer. We ran the MMR double chain setup, and this is all the clearancing you have to do to make that work. There's just, it's a lot of chain, not a lot of room in there. All right, guys, there she is. Sleeved, supported, converted to a 12 millimeter head stud, which kind of was a problem. I should have just bought a new block. I thought this was a 12 mil stud when I sent it to them, and it wasn't. And by the time we realized that, it was kind of too late. But anyway, so yeah, it's converted to 12 mil. And it has ARP hardware in it. They aligned honed it for me. Obviously put the sleeves in it, decked it, supported it, converted it to 12 mil. I know I'm repeating myself, but it's just really cool. I had them not finish hone it or bore it to size. That's why it's still very dirty. They know that machine work still has to be done, so they're not going to be responsible for any cleaning on my end. But yeah, it's definitely a good starting point. Stoked to do this. If I had to do it again, it would have been better just to buy a 12 millimeter block, like a Gen 3 block. It actually would have saved me money in the long run. But we're here. It's done. So, yeah, anyway, just excited. Okay, so this is a standard bore setup. We used a diamond piston and a boost line connecting rod. Oh, here's something cool, these oil squirter deletes. I don't know why I didn't do this before. Just drill and tap it for a quarter pipe plug, and it's perfect. But here's these boost line connecting rods. I've never used these before. This is a Diamond Mod 2K piston deal. I use the Diamond pistons because they use kind of the best stuff in the industry as far as components. The piston itself is obviously a well-engineered, well-designed piece, but they also use a trend pin right off the shelf and a total seal piston ring set, which is my go-to brands for that kind of stuff. This was a 225 wall pin. Normally they run a 250 wall pin, and we couldn't get them in short order, so we used a 225 wall. So this is a factory crankshaft setup, and yeah, like I said, pretty standard stuff there. Sleeves, supported, 12 mil converted Gen 1 block with the factory crank. And we ended up going to a 10-to-1 compression piston setup. I've done some testing before in import world on compression ratios. Actually, we made some pretty big swings in the past, going from like a 10.5-to-1 setup to a 7-to-1 setup. Yes, 7-to-1 compression. I think it was like 7.5. We were actually able to make, I believe, 20 wheel more horsepower in the lower static compression, and the tuning window just becomes that much larger. So that was my biggest thing there. A lot of guys in the V8 world will go 11-to-1 on a turbo setup, which is what this engine was stock. And mostly that is due to getting the thing up on the converter, building torque, naturally aspirated. In a four-cylinder environment, where we did that test, the difference is like pretty minuscule in compression ratio change because the engine naturally aspirated makes like nothing for power, right? You're talking like maybe 200 flywheel. In a V8 world, the compression change is worth quite a bit more, which is why you see a lot of guys run the higher static to get the thing up on the converter and build some torque. So different combinations there. I typically shoot for a 10-to-1 on a ethanol E85 base setup. If it was going to be pump gas, obviously I'd drop that down to like the 9.5-to-1 setup. Anything that was going to be on alcohol, I still don't think I would go above 10.5-to-1. I would really stay there. We've had really good luck with that combo in the four-cylinder world, and I have yet to see a downside to it in the Coyote stuff. This one specifically, but also other combinations. So I think that's where we're going to stay for now. All right, another thing you're going to see there that we did was that Vulcan cut ring gasket from SCE. So this is a cool piece. It uses a composite outer section and then a stainless ring that's floating. The stainless rings have three, I don't know what you want to call them. They have like teeth cut into the top of them, like 3 grooves in the top of them that dig into the cylinder head to hold the rings in place. I would use these in place of like an MLS O-ring combination. I'd never used them myself, but I really wanted to get my hands on a set, and we finally did to use them in this combo. And so far, I mean, so far so good. You see at the end of the video here, we did the half-mile stuff and had success with it, but we've put 33 pounds of boost through this thing, which is somewhere in the 1800 flywheel area, and not had a single issue with it. Now, I tune it relatively conservatively. I haven't leaned on it very hard. Like at 33 pounds, it had, I believe, 15 degrees, 16 degrees of timing. So relatively conservative. But anyway, yeah, definitely cool to test out new products on my personal stuff. One thing I'd never done before was mock this engine up out of the car, and I wanted to see it all together. It is just a gnarly setup with that 180-degree header and the big charger. It just looks really crazy outside of the car. I totally like stuff that's unique, which is why I did the header that way, and I love how it turned out. Alright, some quick dyno session debrief notes that I don't want to forget. The old engine was, the last time we had it here in the dyno was March. I don't know what the DA was. I'm going to guess that it was a bit better, because yesterday it was 93 degrees. So anyway, it was 15 pounds of boost, 18.9 degrees of timing at 7,500 RPM, made 650 wheel. The intake air temps were 98 degrees, and the... yeah, that's pretty much it. So the new setup was 14 pounds of boost, so a pound less boost at 7,500 RPM, the same RPM, just for a good data point. The intake temps were 83 degrees, so almost 20 degrees cooler, so decent amount cooler on intake temps this time. And yeah, so 17 degrees of timing, so 2 degrees less timing, which is what this setup wanted. I think they were both pretty close to MBT, really, the ideal timing. But at the same RPM, at 7,500 RPM, the new combo made 73 more wheel, made 723 horsepower at 7,500 versus the old one's 650 horsepower. Now, the reason that that's important is that the converter flash is somewhere in that 68 to 7,600 area, depending on what kind of power I had in it. When we had 32 pounds of boost to it, when we went 826, it was flashed in the 7,600, which was like significantly past peak power on the stock engine, which was part of the reason why I think it was surviving so well, is because we were above peak torque all the time. Anyway, so the new setup, the new cams, the new engine combination, I think will play really well into the existing converter combination, which is just awesome. I think it's going to fall together and work really well. All right, so check this out. This is a 30-pound hit. It knocks the tire off as soon as it rolls in the boost. You can see a little bit a little smoke out of the catch can when I first roll into the throttle, but after that, the tire smoke comes around. This was 30 pounds. It made 1,060 on 22, and I couldn't keep the thing hooked up over that. We were just doing some testing, trying to see if I could make it stay hooked up, and I couldn't. All right, so here's a first pass in the car. So this was a 9 PSI leave, a 4-second ramp to 29 pounds. The car went 165 mile an hour out the back door, which is a new personal best mile an hour on the first pass on the car. So it's always a good sign. We're anxious to go back and turn it up more with a good tire on it. And here is the whole reason we did this. This is my wife driving the car. This is an in-car video of a 199 mile an hour hit. This was on 32 pounds or 31 pounds up top. Really slow ramp. As you listen to it, you'll hear the power come in really hard once she gets rolling with it. But yeah, our goal was to go 200. We ultimately went 203.5, but the GoPro died in car. So this is actually a 199 mile an hour hit here. But yeah, the half mile stuff's really cool. Excited to go back. I think we've got 215, 220 in this car the way it sits. All right, guys, so we're back home after the half-mile stuff. And yeah, that's it for the engine deal. We're super stoked with that thing. Again, I think it's making around 1,800 flywheel. We're 90% injector duty on the Deca 220s that are in this. And that's on 60 pounds of base pressure. So they're somewhere in like the 265, I think, pound an hour is what that ends up with the adjusted base pressure. But yeah, so it's making a ton of power. Our goal is to take this thing. The only other goal I have for it this year is to drive it to the track and go 7-something and drive it home. We actually boiled the brakes at the half-mile thing. That's why it's in here up on stage, the wheels off. We had to go through the brakes, just re-bleed them. But yeah, so anyway, that's our next goal with the car, is to drive it to the track, go 7-something, drive it home. In the meantime, we're going to kind of do that in probably a month or so. We've got a rental we're signed up for, so I think that's our goal for that day. But in the meantime, check this out. I got some 28s. 28 10.5s. I think I'm going to stick the 28s on there and try to do some no prep stuff maybe. I'm not sure. There's a track local called Onondaga that does a small tire no prep thing every couple weeks, and the cars look to be something I think I can be competitive with. So I'm going to make some suspension changes. We're going to try that. But anyway, that's it for this engine video. Super happy with this thing so far. Really anxious to see what kind of we can get out of this 94. Again, the Charger's about maxed out. We're seeing 50 pounds of back pressure with 33 pounds of boost. So we'll get a little bit left there, but not much. I think we can make 34, 35, maybe another 150, 200 horse on tap. But anyway, in that scenario, that's plenty of power to get us into the 7s with this thing. And hopefully we can do that. And yeah, look forward to making some more videos for you guys.